Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Good afternoon, Christeen. How are you today?
I am good. It is a Monday. Things are happening. It's right before the holidays, but I know this episode is going to drop right around the new year, which is going to be great. I'm looking forward to 2025. How are you doing today?
I am awesome. Had a super weekend. I was the grand marshal at our Winterfest parade this weekend. It was super exciting and really got to live in my strengths of woo and maximizer as the grand marshal. So living my best life in my strengths. The holiday season, I live in Norwich, Connecticut. It's also called the Christmas City. A lot of Hallmark movies are made here because it's such an idyllic New England town. So we really enjoy it and take full advantage of it. And we're going to be talking about strengths today.
Yeah, I'm excited about this episode. You and I both have been working with Gallup Strengths in our businesses and with our team. I think developing ourselves professionally and helping our team develop as well in this area. So I know I've benefited a lot with my leadership skills utilizing this tool, and I'm always excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I talk about it wherever I go. It's always with me wherever I go. And, I've had everyone take the assessment. And what I share with them, it's not a test. There's no wrong answers. It's an assessment to help us become more aware of our strengths and natural talents. I've had my whole family take it, all of my friends, every single person in my company takes it. That's why when the business owners ask me who should take it in the company, I'm like, well, everybody should take it. We want everybody to be living and working in their strengths every day. It's really important. That's when we get the best of everyone, the best of the company. So I'm always promoting people to take it. It just creates that awareness. And, I've seen it in my company. I've seen it in your company. I've worked with almost everyone in your company at some level, either introduction or either a deeper level. And I've seen their growth and them mature their strengths and how it's affected them. I've seen my life change and my awareness and my strengths grow and my team grow and how it's impacted my profitability of my company and also the retention in my company and the maturity of the conversations in my company.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say all of those things are the result of using Gallup Strengths to lead your company, to develop your team. They're just a natural result, I think, when we're really leaning into this concept. And I as well have experienced like better retention, awareness. I use this in our annual reviews as well to help my team grow. So I love talking about it. So let's dive in. What are we going to be diving into today and talking about when it comes to strengths?
So I just want to go over what is CliftonStrengths, right? Gallup has a wonderful business. They have two big locations. One is in Washington, D.C., and the other is in Omaha, Nebraska. And Dr. Don Clifton started in the 70s, and he is a psychologist. And when he started his work, he started with the concept of what if we studied what was right with people, what people were naturally talented in, instead of studying what was wrong with them and how to fix it. So that was his philosophy, and that was his work for over 30 years. And he developed the CliftonStrengths assessment, focusing on what talents people had naturally, what they were good at, and how do we get them to aim those strengths and talents and live in that and work with those talents every day. And Gallup really developed a whole series of support systems and assessments. And they've done this assessment with over 35 million people. And when I was at the conference last June. There was 1,000 strengths coach there from over 50 countries. So
Wow.
this is really a worldwide phenomenon. And, the University of West Virginia is a strengths-based university. They have their own strength-based building. They have a budget of over $1 million to support the students. So the students and the parents of the students take this assessment. And since they've been a strength-based university, they've had the highest graduation rates. They've had the lowest switching of majors since they've been involved in this program. And also, they've had students are graduating in the fewest amount of semesters. So the students are graduating in 8 semesters since they've started this program. So a lot of success in this program. And there's many universities, many corporations, and even small businesses are now really getting involved in this. It's pretty affordable, and it's available to many people. So it's really about, there's no bad strengths, and there's nothing about this assessment and this strengths that is about fixing everybody. And when I work with people, it's really about, I explain to them, you're exactly perfect the way you are. And CliftonStrengths is really about identifying your natural talents and themes and becoming aware of them and developing an appreciation for each talent and strength that you have. Mm-hmm. And then aiming those strengths in challenges and goals in your life so they can show up at work and at home and in your relationships every day.
Yeah. And I think the understanding them and what they are and what they mean is really important. And I've been working with the Gallup Strengths methodologies since my first assessment I took was in 2017. And it was eye-opening. And at first I had kind of some conflict, which is interesting with which strengths showed up until I understood them a little bit more. So it took me a little bit of time to what are these? What do they mean? How are they showing up for me? And how are they going to support me and my roles in my business and leadership, and what does that look like? So I think that utilizing these in a team setting can be very valuable, because when I can't help but think, if I struggled with, connecting with how I showed up and what my best self looked like when I really lean into my strengths, then my team obviously was going to struggle with that too once we identified it. So as we rolled out the program of the Gallup Strengths, we wanted to have those conversations with them and have implemented this in the business as part of our onboarding. Is, what are your strengths? What do they mean? How are they showing up? And then how can we really take the best part of you and put it to work in your role? And what does that look like? And I know I've definitely grown and stepped into a whole different, form of leadership of how I show up for my team, because I better understood myself, and I better understood, what the best side of me looked like that I could bring to the table for my team.
Yeah, and just creating that awareness. Like when we give this assessment to people, they're like, "Why are you paying so much attention to me at work? And are you really trying to, not fix me? You really want me to show up as the best of me and the most authentic person?" And people are suspicious at first, but then they see it's our company culture. We believe in that. And then they're more open and more vulnerable to it. But I will share, many people are suspicious of this CliftonStrengths assessment at first, because most people never work in a place where they're recognized for their natural talents and strengths. People want to put them in a box or in between these lines. You just, stay in these lines, you do what you're told, and, maybe you'll get a raise. Just, it's a lot. There's a lot of just do what you're told and don't break rules and we won't punish you, instead of hey, we want the best parts of you to show up here and we're going to support that. And we know we're going to get a return on investment by supporting the best parts of you. And that's just such a different concept. And so when we started doing it, people were a little suspicious here too at American Landscape and Lawn Science, but I saw it, how much it helped our company with retention, profitability, productivity was incredible. Attitude, right? how much it changed people's like energy, really. And one of the things that I noticed, and this was amazing, was that when we're not working in our strengths and talents, it creates so much stress. And that stress shows up in our bodies. It shows up in our shoulders and our neck and our stomach and our backs. And when my team started working in their strengths, a lot of stress left this company. You know, when we're not working in our strengths, our flight response shows up because we don't want to be where we're not naturally like energized, where things don't feel comfortable, and we just don't want to be there. So when people start working in their strengths and their talents every day, that is like, that's where they want to live, in that strength and talent, because the energy feels so natural. So the stress just starts to melt away. So you just have less absenteeism, you have less breakage, you have higher quality, you have less returns. There's just so many things that just start to happen without additional training, without additional rules, without additional coaching, because they're in their natural talents. And when they're in their natural talents and strengths, they do the right thing at the right time, naturally. Right. And so that is what drove me to become a certified Clifton Strength coach, was seeing the responses that I was seeing at work. And I was like, I have to share this with other people, because I was sharing it with other people all the time anyway, anywhere and anywhere I went. So that's why I got so deep and involved in it. So how does it affect teams? How does it affect your team so far, other than what we talked about?
Yeah. And you said something just a minute ago where you said, they show up doing the right things at the right time. And that really hit home for me, because it made me think of, and I kind of look at this from I'm like, oh, I'm so spoiled, right? Like, I work with my team members and we can anticipate each other's needs, right? We can be one step ahead of one another, which is really nice, right? Like, that's the ideal situation when, at least for me and my team, because, we're strategic, we're executing, we get things done, we move very fast. So when we're working with other team members that can anticipate each other's needs and can also be one step ahead of the other person, we're even more productive. And I, kind of looked at it as like, oh, I'm so spoiled, but there is a reason behind it. There's a why behind it. And one of the main reason is we have looked at each other's strengths. We've learned each other's strengths. So I know who on my team is strategic. I know who on my team is executing. I know who's going to say something better than maybe I would even say it, or the delivery is going to be different. So I'm like, hey, you go do this, right? So we know, based on each other's strengths, what job someone's going to do really well. And we also understand kind of where our faults are, right? So there's things that it's like, don't give it to me, because I'm going to make a mess of it. And my team knows this. It's not something I love. I'm going to get grouchy about it, but then we have team members that love to do those types of tasks. So I think in our company, it's given us this really great gift of working so well with each other and being even more productive, because we're so in tune with one another. But then we also understand where we best show up and what our best looks like, in any of the roles. So we know who to give what task to, or who's going to really love this project we're working on, right? So that way it's successful. But it also helps us understand when we're not at our best. And I know my team's strengths, and my team knows my strengths, to where when gaps show up, or we have friction points or things that we don't love, what's kind of happening with that, right? And I've talked about this before, where there's good intentions. Like 99.9% of the time, the people on our team have good intentions, but it doesn't always come out that way. And there's a reason why. And the why, I think, goes all the way back to this point of, are we working in our strengths? When we're working in our strengths, we're going to show up, we're going to be successful. When we're not, we're really going to struggle. And there's been, situations where I've easily been able to identify, I'm like, why is this happening? What's going on? And it's frustrating to me. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so this is the strength I need, or this is what I need. But this person, they're not going to show up in that space because that's not their strength. So I think that in itself has really, we know who complements each other. We know what to expect, and we can fix it faster. And there's not as much as disappointment that happens to where we're like, oh, that person's not doing their job. It's not that they're not doing their job. They're struggling with something, and it has to do with their strengths.
Yeah. And a lot of what you referred to was the different domains. So there's 4 domains. There's 34 unique strengths. And in those 34 strengths, they're broken into 4 domains. And the 4 domains are executing. And the executing theme, that's the strength that makes things happen. It gets things done. And the most common theme of all Gallup Clifton Strength themes are achiever. Worldwide, in the United States and worldwide, it's the number 1 strength, the achiever theme. And that's in executing. And they love lists. They love to check things off. They love to get things done in order. So executing, they make things happen. The next theme is relationship building. And this theme helps build strong relationships. It helps keep teams together. And that's like empathy, individualism. They see people and what's unique about each person. And relationship is really important to have on a team, and to recognize that they feel what other people are feeling even before other people feel it. So that's a really unique strength to have. Another domain is influencing, which is what I lead with. This theme helps people take charge, speak up, but it also makes sure that other people are heard. So they don't dominate all the conversations. They want other people to be in. They're very cooperative, and they realize the importance of having other people involved and making sure that other people are heard. So they make good leaders because they are able to build good teams. And then strategic thinking is the next domain. And this theme helps people absorb and analyze information that informs better decisions. So strategic thinking is intellection. Strategic thinking actually is its own strength. And Christeen's a strategic thinker. She's my business partner. My Chief Operating Officer is also strategic thinking. My wife is strategic thinking. Many of my friends are. And before I even got involved in Clifton and Gallup Strengths, did not know I had inadvertently surrounded myself in my life at work and at home with strategic thinkers. I don't have it in my top 10. So I balanced out my strengths by surrounding myself with strategic thinkers, which was very interesting. Yeah. And strategic thinkers were the ones that basically for 3,000 years, 3,000 years ago, they kept us alive. They were the ones that noticed that was a broken branch or something wasn't right over there. Maybe there was a saber-toothed tiger and we should not go over there. Where, I have activator, a influencing theme, number 1, and I'm like, oh, let's go. And they're like, no, something's not right. Let's investigate a little bit more. So a very important domain to have. So we need all 4 domains. There's no good domain or bad domain, but on a team, we need to know which domain is going to help us out depending on the goal or challenge. And we have to respect and be aware of each domain. It's very interesting. And, I used to be frustrated sometimes when I'd be like, why can't people be more like me doing this? And when I've coached other people, they've also experienced the same type of frustration. And what we've realized is in that group of people, you're that person. We're that person. That's why we're in that group. If you're in the group, there's an executor. There is a relationship. There's a strategic thinker. There's influencing. So most likely the reason you're in the group and the reason everyone else is not like you is because that's your role in that group. What you're doing and what you're feeling, that is your role. So that is your team contribution.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot, like over the years, all the, business conferences I've been to and events, and there's always a challenge around hiring or who, people talking about like, oh, I need the right people. I need the right people on my team. And, they're like, oh, if I could just hire someone just like me. And I hear that a lot. And that's the thing is, well, if we had someone just like you, right, we're not making space or not inviting somebody in to do or fill that space with the things that we really need. So typically we're trying to hire someone to take things over to fill the gaps, but it's very likely that there's someone that isn't just like us that's going to do the job better. And this is me speaking from experience too, because when I was looking for someone, to join the team and take over like the operations and delivery to our clients of the day-to-day stuff, I was like, oh, I need somebody, that shows up this way like I do or this way like I do. But I was also aware I needed somebody that communicated a little bit differently than I did, or didn't move as fast as me. And that would be a benefit. So I wasn't looking for someone just like me, but I was looking for someone that was somewhat similar in ways and then very different in others. So I think that's an awareness that is beneficial to have as a leader of who isn't on our team that we need, like where are the gaps and where do we get tripped up, or even who do we need on our team that could do this better? And I think that that's an important perspective as well to have, and then even making that space for those people to show up.
Yeah, it's very it's very confusing because sometimes we think we just want more people like us, but once we become aware of like what we bring and what other people can bring, we realize that diversity is really where the strength comes from. All four domains really makes a solid foundation, and you can't just have all executing. And we were just having a conversation about there's a conference that people go to and it's very executing driven. It's run by an executor and it's developed and delivered executing. And so anybody who is outside of the executing domain finds it exhausting, and it's almost it's counterproductive because it's so executing. But if you're executing, it checks all the boxes because it's just task driven, checklist driven, to-do list driven, and they just love it. But the three other domains are desperately crying out for help. So it's kind of not a balanced delivery. So when we're delivering, we need that foundation, right? How do we deliver what the domains need, and how do we have respect and honor what the other domains need? And it starts with awareness. And that awareness starts with the assessment, right? So that's why when people say, who on my team should I have take the assessment? And I always answer everyone, because, we want to invest. It's pretty inexpensive for the assessment, depending on what coaching package you get. Or if you don't get a coaching package with it, then at least you can have the assessment. But for a few $100s, you're going to have a really good idea of what each team member strengths and assessments look like, and where they fit in your company and how you can support them. And, what does it cost to replace an employee? About 1.5 times their annual salary. So for a few $100s, it's a really pennies on the dollar investment to know how you can support them and how they can show up on the team. So I always say, assess everyone. You're just going to get further and further ahead. And, you might be the only person that ever invested in them, in their future, and cared about them at a job. Maybe not, but most likely, most people have never had anybody put any kind of money into them as an individual like that. So it shows that you really care. And I will share, this year we have 30 employees at my landscape company. We've had 0 turnover, first year ever. And that, adds to the bottom line, not having that turnover. If each employee can cost between 1 to 1.5 times their annual salary to replace. So that's where I would start, is start with the awareness and the assessment. And then how do we encourage our team members to have that voice and start using their contribution? Gallup has a wonderful platform for each person that takes the assessment. That's why I would encourage everyone to take the assessment. They take the assessment and they have a platform that goes over their top 5. It gives them a top 5 report. And they also get their top 34. And they get a beautiful top 5 certificate that they can print out. And if your whole team takes it, you can develop a team grid. We can help you with that. We help many companies with that. And also, if you take the assessment through us, I'll send each person that takes it their top 5 strengths videos that I handpicked through Gallup. Gallup has a series called Coach that they've been doing for years. And top Gallup coaches go over each strength in discussion. They have a short and a long version. And I handpicked out short versions. You can go into longer ones if you want. They're about 5 to 7 minutes and explains your strength and a talent. And I send your top 5 videos to you and you get to watch those. And if you sign up for the coaching, you get to meet with me and we go over your report. And you get to understand that a little bit more. And it also helps you to understand your coworkers and people that you're in relationships with. And when I got into Gallup CliftonStrengths more and more, I had my wife take the assessment. It completely changed my understanding of my wife and my relationship. I learned that she was a learner. She leads with strategic thinking. So intellection, analytical, learner, but she also has individualism. But now she's always asking me questions about stuff. So I was always like, why do you always have to know more? If I said one thing, it followed up with 6 questions. And I always felt like she was interrogating me, but it was her learner needing to have more information and her analytical and input needing to collect the truth about stuff, but more data. So now I know if I'm going to talk to her, I have to show up with more information and have links and information that she's going to need to know more about, and not just me and just shooting off a one-liner and leaving her wanting to know more. And the same thing at work. There are certain people I need to know if I'm going to have a conversation with them. I need to show up with way more information than I used to meet their strengths needs.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
Yeah, and we made this part of our onboarding process. So I want to kind of talk about this a little bit. So, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, how is this applicable in a business and how does this, connect with teams and stuff? So I want to share a little bit on what we've done with it. So one, everybody, if they're here for a certain amount of time in our onboarding process, they take an assessment. They watch the videos, they have a call with Steve, it's a 1-hour call, and they talk about their assessment. And the interesting part of this, because I've had some new, employees in the last year that has joined our team, And they've gone through this process, and they shared, first they, I kind of chuckled because they said, it's like a therapy session. It's amazing. And what they're getting from it is all this insight about their strengths, who they are, why they show up in that way, and what that looks like. And we've had some team members share, because we continue this concept. So of developing, their strengths. And in our team retreat, we did, a little strengths workshop. And some of the things that, were shared by some of the new team members that joined and went through this process was they gained insight that they had never had before. And even in some areas that might have tripped them up in their role, and they felt certain ways. And they said, I gained some insight on why I felt that way, and even how this time around I can, show up differently, and what that looks like for me. So, we've talked about before the concepts of maturing a strength. And that's, basically raising the awareness, really helping them understand. And, we have a workshop that we do with our clients. And I've sent some of my team through this workshop, really understand, like, what is my strength? How does it show up for me? And then how can I best put it to work? So they've gone through that process and gained some understanding. The other interesting thing is we do have a team grid, and Steve talked about, developing a team grid. And what this team grid is, and I want to talk about this because it was a very funny conversation I had with my team during the retreat, is the grid shows the domains that Steve talked about, the 4 domains, and how many strengths we have in each domain. And on my team, it's highly executing. So the people on my team, they get stuff done. They're very productive. They dot the I's, they cross the T's. That's what you want, right? From an accountant, right? So an accounting team, somebody who's doing your numbers, is to be very detailed. So they're all high executing. And then there's a mix of, surprisingly enough, relationship that's in there. And then there's another group of us that have, we're filling up that strategic domain. And then there's another mix of us that kind of fills in the influencing. But what we found was our strategic and influencing numbers, the number of strengths that showed up on our team, were about the same. But the relationship and executing was very high. Like, there was a lot of that showing up because we're connecting with people, we're dotting the I's, and we're crossing the T's, right? So when I asked my team, I said, all right, so here's our team grid. Where could we use some more, like, who do we need to show up? Do we need someone to show up that has more executing, more strategic, more influencing, more relationship? So there was this conversation that started amongst my team. And I realized that there was a bias that was showing up in this conversation of course, the executings are like, we need more executing people. And the relationship are going, well, we need more relationship people. And so I was curious about that. And I'm like, tell me more about that. And then, they're like, well, we have this many people, we work well this way, all this stuff. So then I started asking about these other domains and said, okay, so tell me about, like, why would we not need more influencing or more strategic? What does that look like? So I realized that there was this bias showing up on influencing. And influencing, as Steve shared, is people, influencing people make sure that other people are heard, right? So they step in and they make sure that the people who aren't talking or aren't showing up in that space, that they're seen and heard as well. And that's the intention. So the executing people and the relationship people were like, oh, those influencing people, they take up the space. They want the attention. They want this and that. And so there was this lack of understanding around how these other, if they weren't that dominant in that domain, they weren't quite understanding the other domains. So that gave me an opportunity to talk about those other domains. And then once they understood how those domains show up and what they're there for, they're like, oh yeah, we need more strategic people and more influencing people. That would really balance us out. So it raised the awareness around the domains and how our team is kind of set up now. And then it also got people excited about who else could be in our team to kind of balance it out a little bit more. So we weren't, so highly executing. And so that was a very insightful conversation. And it was great to see the team get excited about someone else showing up in the space that wasn't just like them.
Yes, it's funny. The bias is natural to have in the strengths. It's interesting depending on who you're talking with, where the biases show up. When I was getting my certification, there was a strong bias against WOO. And WOO is the only acronym in the strengths, Gallup Strengths. And WOO stands for winning others over. And I have WOO as number 3. And I was not taking offense to it, but there were some people that were really getting their feelings hurt with this bias because people are like, woos are shallow, woos, they're not authentic, and woos are this and that, because these people, this was their perception of it. And it was very interesting to hear. And these people were really getting their feelings hurt because woos can come across as especially to someone who has relator strength, which is very few friends, very tight circle, very deep friendships, very deep relationships, meaningful relationships, where woos are, they might have some good friends, but they have many acquaintances. So they can seem fake and phony. This is the words they were using, but really they might know many people. They just don't have that deep relationship. But to the relator, they're like, how can you say hi to that many people? That can't be real. But to a woo, it can be very real. They can go say hi to 50 people. And to them, it's saying hi. It's not, they don't need to, they're not telling their life story and sharing all their whatever with the 50 people, but they can say hi to 50 people and be fine with that. So it was very interesting to hear the bias of against woo and the bias against influencing. So influencing is the least likely theme to have as your main domain. So it's typically the least understood domain. And if it is your, main domain, I have 6 influencing out of my top 10, and there's only 9 influencing themes. So it's like I'm about 4% of the population. And I understand the bias against influencing because we can literally drive executing people insane because I don't have executing. And I will drive executing people crazy because they will say, just do this and that. And like, I'm not a doer of things. Like people will give me, they'll just start tasking me and I'm looking at them like, I understand the words that you're saying, but I just don't do that. Like I'm the president of the Finnish American Heritage Society. And when I first began president there, the other presidents, they would show up with a tool belt on Saturdays and Sundays and do fix stuff and repair stuff and build stuff and make stuff. And they would start telling me what needed to be repaired. And I was like, oh, well, who are we calling? Who's going to do that? And they're like, oh no, the old president would do. I'm like, I don't know who you're talking. That I don't do any of that. It took them about 5 years to stop asking me to fix stuff. And then they would also ask me if there was no chairperson for an event to run that. And I'd be like, oh yeah, who's going to chair that? You're going to have to get somebody. I don't run all these events. So, but they were very executing. They were very executing people, and they just thought that was the position. So it's very frustrating for people who are executing because they talk executing and they speak and they instruct executing. And so it's a challenge for executing sometime. It's a challenge for most domains dealing with influencing. So
yeah, and I want to talk a bit about like why it's so important to have that diverse, team and how it shows up. And you and I have had conversations about this where I'm like, oh, this happened or oh, that happened or, something that's frustrating. and or even something that's great. And what, in that conversation, we're really identifying like what theme is showing up here, like what domain, right, is showing up here. And with my team being highly executing, one of the things is, I can see how with executing people, right, that executing, they will get so lost in the weeds of all the tasks and all the doing. And, and I even will say like they're little task hoarders, right? Where they'll be like, I'm going to take on this and this and this and this. And I go, they're running around just like creating more tasks. And it can drive me, kind of crazy as a strategic, because I'm like, it's not just about all the tasks, right? We're trying to get this higher level thing done. So we don't need more doing to get this done. We just need to get there. So when we have a heavy amount of domains going on in a business, it can, create more of where they're going to get lost in the weeds, right? And I think every domain, like they have that, a place, like a hole that they fall in or a gap, and they're like, oh, let's
Yes.
go off and
Every domain can, yes. Influencing, relationship, executing, strategic thinking, they'll collect information and they can they'll discipline, they'll never be able to make a decision. So each one does. So how do we find that out, right? We developed a really awesome workshop, team workshop that we have worked through, and it's really opened eyes. Like at the end of the workshops, the team is not the same. And, we've at the end of the workshops, they're walking around going, we did not know that about each other. Wow, we can work totally differently, whether it's communication, they've moved people around the company. They're like, oh my gosh, you should not be doing that. People have switched, not whole jobs, but they've exchanged parts of each other's jobs. They're like, I hate doing that. They're like, I love doing that. I hate doing this. I love doing that. So they've even swapped what they're doing. So in this workshop, it really starts with an introduction to Gallup, and then the top 5 report, your top 5 strengths. And then we talk about and we share at our best, right? So when are we at our best at work? And then, each person writes that down and they share it with everybody in this workshop. And that is everyone's eyes just open up.
Yeah.
And then they also share when I'm at my worst. So you get to hear this is when I'm operating out of my strengths at work, when you see me struggle, frustrated, and it takes me so long. And, when I've coached people, most people can do about 80% of their job really well, and then they'll struggle and it'll look like they don't care, or they're procrastinating, or they're lazy. But really what happened is their strength gas tank is empty. They just ran out. And this is where who can be on my team? Who can help me? And other people, this is when you start sharing on this team session. Like, I could help you with that. I'll do that. I love doing that. And that's when the energy picks up in the room. So when they do that at your best workshop, it's just amazing to see what happens in that group. And then we go over the team grid and we see who's on our team. So then they can start recognizing who's on our team that can help us with that, and who's on our team that I can help with my strengths and talents. And then you start seeing a team really come together, and you see the silos, of working alone, and they start to melt away. And we do a couple of exercises that show how much stronger we are on a team. And they do an exercise by themselves and they score 10. Then they do an exercise with 2 people and they score 15. And then they do an exercise with 4 people and they score 50. And it just shows that it's the same exact exercise, but when you get 4 strengths domains together, how the results are exponential. And basically they're given the same inputs, but the outcome is 5x, because each strength looks at the same. It doesn't look at everything the same. So when you have the 4 strengths combined, it 5x's it. It doesn't 4x it. So it's very interesting. And then we work on when you're at your best at work, and you really work and identify when you're at your best at work. What are you doing? How does it feel? What are you accomplishing? What strengths are you using when you're at your best at work? And then you share that with your team, and they share their best at work with you, so you can recognize that. And, you really identify moments like, remember when we had this challenge, how did we overcome it? What did that feel like? What strengths were showing up? And so we're identifying it. It wasn't a thing that just happened. We're identifying what it was, what it felt like, how our strengths were, what strengths did show up. And then one of the biggest things is our contribution to our team. So, what do we feel we're contributing to our team? What strengths are we contributing to our team? And then identifying how can we contribute that every day, or how can we contribute that to our team more often?
Right. Yeah. And the other thing I like about this is it helps team members, one, identify like, who am I and what are my strengths and what do I lead with? Like, am I executing? Am I strategic? Relationship? Am I influencing? And then who is on my team and what do they lead with? Right. And then it helps us not get caught in the weeds. And me with strategic, and let me tell you, every domain that anybody who has a domain that they lead with, when they are doing all those things in that domain, and I'll just use strategic as an example, when we go and we don't get 12 solutions, we get 20 solutions. When we have, 20 different ways to get there, when we're like, oh, and I'm going to make this better and I'm going to add this and that, we are like a pig in mud, right? So every domain has that where they're just, in that just whatever it is, that zone that just fills your cup and you're like, oh, this feels so great. That's not the way to get everything done, right? So those are moment by moment things we should do, but not all the time, right? Like we can't fill the gas tank with that. We've got to have that balance of other people that say, okay, so we don't need 12 things. We just need 3, right? How can these people that are showing up going to understand this better? We might need to minimize it or make it less. What does that look like? Right. So that way it's not a 100-mile runway, right? It's just a 10-mile runway, like whatever we need there. So having those other domains on our team and being aware of them, it helps our team and even us as leaders understand, who do I need to go to get the right support on this? Or, I'm in this zone where I'm doing so much and I'm not getting to the end of something, right? Or this isn't going to be successful. Who can support me in understanding like what that looks like? Or who else do I need to bring in? So we don't want a team where it's just all executing people. We don't want a team that's, 50% or 60% like executing and strategic. Like we want that balance to come to the table because that's really what's going to create success. And when we educate our team of what that looks like and who's on their team, they can get there faster without us. So as a leader or a manager, we don't have to go in and start telling them what to do or go like, why isn't this done? They're already figuring it out and showing up with their strengths and then going to find the other people that they're like, oh, I need to sit down with this person because they're really good at this. And this is what I need help with. So they know where their gaps are. They know where their strengths are. And then they know where their team's strengths are. So they're automatically going to go to that person, which makes it so much easier as a leader when your people are already solving those types of problems in addition to dealing with the day-to-day work.
Yeah. And, I've shared this story before. It was a couple months ago, and I walked by one of my landscape crews, and they were getting ready to do a pretty complicated paver install job. And they were literally talking about who they needed on this crew. They were like, but not a person. They were talking about a strength. They said, we need someone that has high restorative. Restorative is a strength that has the ability of problem solving. That's the talent of restorative, because it was going to be a paver job with multiple levels and tiers. So they wanted to make sure that they had somebody that had high restorative problem solving strength on that crew. So that's why I said, everybody in the company needs this, right? How much more productive was that landscape install crew? My Hispanic landscape install crew who took the assessment in Spanish knew that they needed a high restorative strength skill on this crew to be more productive and have a higher quality product, right? They figured it out and they were not waiting for anyone to tell them. They recognized each other. So imagine being the person that is like, hey, we need you on this crew. Imagine the pride the person that is brought into as their strength and talent is going to bring on that crew, right? Now, who wants to work at a company where your strengths and talents are recognized? Everyone. And I think that's why the retention in my company is so high, because we're recognizing people's talents and strengths, and we're letting them show up and perform that. And so when that happens, that's such a unique place to work at. That and it's not just the owner or the boss; it's your fellow employees. And I honestly think that's more meaningful to my team than if I recognize them or just me. If if the team recognizes their talents and strength, I think that just is a whole nother level of recognition. So that I was just walking by and I heard that, and I was just like, so proud. I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are they got it. They're recognizing each other. And that's really what it's about. And so the whole purpose of this is performance, right? For challenges and goals. So we want to increase our team's performance levels, and we want to hit goals, and we want to meet challenges. And that is the whole purpose of employing Gallup CliftonStrengths. If we have performance levels we want to meet and exceed, we have challenges that we have to constantly overcome. And one of the things, I've been in business for 40 years, I've learned a lot. But one of the things when I was much younger, I thought business was going to be easier. I didn't realize things were tough and challenging and went wrong all the time. I thought things were supposed to go A, B, C, D. I didn't know they went A, B, C, green, blue, K, 4. I didn't know everything was a puzzle every day, every week, every year, every season. I thought as long as you did what you were supposed to do when you were supposed to do it, everything worked out. And that is not work. That is not life. So challenges are all the time. But what I learned is if we can face challenges from our strengths, they're much easier and less stressful to overcome. So, and especially when we're dealing with, work, right? So when we have a challenge, we can really say, okay, who's on our team? What's the challenge, right? What strengths are best to deal and overcome this challenge, and who's on our team that has those challenges? And those are the discussions we have now. So like we have people that answer the phone here, customer service people, they do an awesome job. We have an inbound person. We have an outbound call person. They both have positivity, communication, and woo in their top 5, right? When you call, you are getting or you get a call from them, you're getting the right person on the phone. We have other people here, their communication is 34. Their positivity is 33. They're great on the computer for scheduling, getting into data. If you want a pivot table on an Excel report, or you want deep dive, scheduling on thousands of customers, that's the person for you. But you don't want them on the phone. 5 phone calls in, they're exhausted. Not 70 phone calls, and they still have energy. So, having the person with the right strengths and the right job. We've all been it. You pull up to, any restaurant, fast food place, if the person's has the right job or not, the way they take your order.
Yeah.
And, the person who is not in the right job, they don't have positivity, communication, woo. Yeah, can I take your order? You don't even want to buy anything. And they're exhausted at the end of the day. And the other person, hey, how are you? You having a good day? Well, how can I help you today? What would you like to order? Right? Do you want fries with that? Would you like a soda, large? How about a shake? I bet you they sell more. They're not exhausted at the end of the day. Everything, they stay there longer. So having the right people in the right job, you get higher performance. And also goals. Goals can be daunting, but when you can put a team together that has the strengths, you can achieve those and exceed those goals.
Yeah. And I would speak to that, it's not just the service industry, like, in your business, Steve, with the landscape and trades. And I have an accounting company and a coaching company. And over there, we know what type of person to put on what job. So when we get a new client in the door and we're identifying what they need, we know who's going to be their maintenance person, right? Their everyday, making sure their books are updated on all that stuff. When we have someone that comes in for a renovation, so there we need to do a cleanup on their books, or their chart of accounts or whatever it is. We have somebody who gets I would say they're giddy over the fact that we've got a new renovation coming in. So we have different types of accountants that do different things. We even have people more, like me, to where I'm looking at not just the numbers, but then the operations side. So it's like we have more of those strategic accountants, so when we have a team that's diverse, that when it even comes to accounting or, that higher professional, service industry that you may work with as a business owner, they're stepping into their strengths and we know who that is going to go to. And then the turnaround is really quick. It's, highly productive. The client's really happy. There isn't mistakes or errors that have to go back. Like when it is done, it's done. And it's done at a higher level because we do have the right people in the right roles. So it's even made as an owner of an accounting, firm and coaching firm, it's made it so much easier to where I'm like, there's not a problem with this. It's great, instead of going, oh, why did that happen? And I've got to go clean that up. And so it really allows me to stay in my role because everybody's in the right role and they're aware of what their strengths are. And if they run into something, they're like, I'm going to go find my team member because they're really good at this and I can get it done faster.
Yeah, that's accounting. And for lawn techs, you're like, how would this even affect lawn technicians, lawn applicators, right? So we have 10 lawn techs, 2 are lead with relationship, the other 8 lead with executing. So the 2 that lead with the relationship, we put them on the most residentially dense routes and people love them. They see them all the time. We have the least callbacks, the least complaints. And then we have and of course they can't do all the residentials. So we have to put the more, the techs that have executing with some relationship or influencing in the residential, but the techs that are almost all intellectual and executing, we keep them on commercial accounts because they don't want to. They're like, why do people have to talk to me? Why do people have to stop? They love cemeteries because people don't really have to talk to them too much. Condominiums, big commercial sites, they're great for that. People annoy them if they have to talk to them during the day. They literally just want to come to work. They want to do their work. They want to do a really good job. And they're highly productive. But they don't want the chit chat during the day. They don't want to talk to Mrs. Jones. They don't want to hear about Mrs. Jones's kitty cat or the granddaughter or the grandkids or any of that. They just want to do their job. But we have the other ones. They know the life story of the pets, the grandkids, and they still get their work done. But it gives them energy to know, those techs get nice Christmas cards, they get tips, gifts. It's hilarious. So, but it feeds both their energies. And that's like I was saying before, if I took those techs that don't want to deal with everybody and made them do that, that stress would show up in their body and it would show up in their attitude. Yeah. And it would show up in their performance in their applications. So you get, a higher level of everything by putting the right person in the right place. Awesome. So how do we offer this to our clients?
Yeah. So if you've been listening to this podcast and you're looking at like, how do I get started with this? I want to share, we run a workshop once, maybe twice a year. And we're going to be running this workshop. It's a 6-week workshop. It's done virtually, so you could be anywhere and show up on this workshop, on this call. It's 75 minutes long, each one of the 6 sessions. There are some support calls in between where you can show up and ask additional questions. And this workshop starts January 14th. So if you're listening to this podcast, which is dropping around New Year's, and you're looking at signing up and wanting to do something like this, it does start January 14th. It will run for 6 weeks. And I'm not sure if we're going to be doing this again in 2025. So if you're thinking like, oh, I might do it later, just know that we may not be offering this until next year. So we're going to share the links in the show notes. I love this workshop because, one, it's great for teams. It's great for leaders. And for every team member you sign up. So if you sign up your first team member, we give you an automatic 50% off for every team member you sign up after that. That's in your company, because we feel that this workshop benefits the team. So it's really a team activity. So I would say at least you and someone else, if not more. And we're going to share the link for this in the show notes.
Yes, definitely. You and at least one other person. Some people have signed up as many as 8 or 9 people from their company to do it together, but definitely 2 people together. That way you have someone to talk to about it. I would definitely recommend that. Some people have gone through it and then they've signed up. We've done in-person team training at their company afterwards, but definitely 2 people. You will have so much fun talking about it. And after you watch the videos, after each class, the awareness and discoveries will be so much fun. Everyone is very happy during this class and after. It's just one of those enjoyable workshops for sure.
It is.
So thank you very much for joining us on today's podcast. I hope to see you at the workshop, and Happy New Year. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.